which is really nice because not all staff are returning to the office. But as we've been able to start having some meetings in person and things like that, it's been really great. But we are just kind of learning how everything's working. But in the meantime, we can, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are recording this because there's some folks who wanted to come today who weren't able to make it, just in case we do cover something that's relevant for them, and we don't want them to miss out on anything. So I'll just introduce myself and say hi. My name is Nadja Jackson. I'm the program officer at Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation. I know I've met some of you before. Some of you, I think we've exchanged some email over time. And hopefully everybody is here to learn more about the Community Foundation's current grant cycle, which is for the fall of 2022. Those grants are open now for submission. And the deadline for that is October 10th. I'm going to just pause because I can't tell if people are raising their hands or anything. So please feel free, just as we go through today, just raise a hand or just go ahead and break in and ask a question as needed. This is meant to be very informal and really meant to be an opportunity for us all to build community. So hopefully we'll be able to see each other's faces. In the meantime, if you're able to access the chat, if you want to put in your name and the organization that you're representing, that would be great. So then everybody can kind of see who's here. Any questions before we kind of get started with introductions? Okay, so I'm joined by my colleague Hank. He runs our IT department and does all of our web integration and general application support. And Adine Miller, our executive director, is joining the call. I'm not sure if he's on yet or not. He was back to back with meetings, but he'll be joining us as well. So if you have other questions for Adine or myself, that would be, we're here and available to answer questions. Let's see, why don't we go ahead and I'm trying to think how to start. Who else wants to introduce themselves? Maybe I will just call on people who I think I know are here, which is, I know Rona is here. So Rona, if you'd introduce yourself, and then you can call on the next person. Should be able to access her audio. Hank, does Rona have her audio off?
Let me check. I think she did.
Okay.
Let's see.
We can move on to Rose.
Can we just make everybody a panelist for now? Then
absolutely, that'd be great.
Maybe it'll just be easier.
Yeah. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay. Starting to see people pop up.
Just to see if that makes it even more easier. We're experimenting.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if people can take themselves off of okay.
So while everybody's doing that, I'm Rose Rambo, and I'm here representing the Los Altos Assistance League of Los Altos in downtown Los Altos.
Great. Let's see. How about Anne? Why don't you go next, Anne? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
That's good timing. I'm Ann Hartman. I'm the Director of Grants and Foundation Stewardship at YMCA of Silicon Valley.
Excellent. Diane, why don't you go next?
I'm Diane Walter from the Community Women's Chorus.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here today. And let's see, I'm trying to think who else I need to call on. Jennifer. Jennifer can hear us yet.
She's saying it's not popping up. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's very odd, but, oh, there she
Okay.
is.
Oh, there she
Oh,
is. Okay,
she's-
I can hear you.
Okay, sure. So I'm Jennifer Byram. I'm with the a grant writer with Bay Area Housing Corporation.
Fantastic. All right. Kelly, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Kelly Sheehan and I'm with Arts Los Altos.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And Doug, I owe you an email, Doug. Glad you're here today. Doug should be able to speak.
He's unmuted now.
He's unmuted. Okay, great. All right. Doug, we will come back to you. Guido, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Rida Alam. I'm a trainee at YMCA Project Cornerstone.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you all.
Okay. And Anusuya, is that correct?
Absolutely, you got that correct. I'm Anusuya Rao. I'm the co-founder for Free Flight Club. It's a parent-teen club focusing on teens all the way from middle school to high school.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Thanks for being here today. Rona, I think maybe you have the opportunity to speak now.
Thank you. This is Rona Broderick. It's really nice to be here. I am also with YMCA Project Cornerstone.
Great. Thanks for being here. And Sarah, unmute yourself, please. I think we got you. Yep, there you go.
Okay. Sarah Fisher. I'm with the Community Women's Chorus.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I see Nicole.
Hello. Yes, I'm sorry I didn't put my full name in. I didn't realize it was going to be blasted out to everyone. So excuse my brevity. I'm Nicole Barth Ellis. I am with Life Moves, which is headquartered in Menlo Park.
Great. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay. And Laura.
Hi, my name's Laura Roberts, and I'm with Arts Los Altos, which is bringing public art to private property in downtown Los Altos.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And I see Sarah, and I think a colleague.
Is there another Sarah?
Sorry, another Sarah from Momentum, right?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm the institutional giving assistant here, and I'm with.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madhu Salazar. I'm the manager of institutional giving at Momentum. The organization does mental health and behavioral health services in Santa Clara County.
Fantastic. Okay, I think if Doug is able to speak, Doug can introduce themselves. Otherwise, we will move on. Doug is, I believe, with Next Door Solutions for Domestic Violence. So, okay. Hi, everyone. This is great. Thank you, Hank, for promoting everybody to be a panelist. There's no reason not to, because this is for you guys. So everybody should be able to speak to each other and have conversations, ask questions, all those kinds of things. So,
Yeah. He's back in. Sure. I think Doug was having issues and he's back in now.
Okay. Great. Doug, if you want to introduce yourself and you're able to come on screen, feel free. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and continue. So I know several of your organizations are returning grantees. But if you are a first-time grantee or have never applied for funds from the Community Foundation before, please raise your hand in case you are brand new, I want to make sure that we make sure to answer your questions in particular. I know there's some new organizations that we haven't necessarily supported before, and some that maybe it's been a while. I think, Rose, I think it's been a little while since we gave a grant to the Assistance League. I think it's been a while since you've applied, not that it's been a while since we've funded you. So yeah, looking forward to hearing kind of what those questions are that people have, particularly if you're a newer grantee. So I know some of the questions that came in ahead of time included just generally what's the cadence for the fall grant cycle. I mentioned when we started that the grants are open now. Has anybody had trouble accessing, actually getting into or creating an account for the grant application? If you've already tried, please just speak up and we can, because this is literally where we could walk you through it. We can open up a screen and walk people through if they need help with creating an account or accessing anything. Anybody have an issue with that? Okay. So grant applications are due on October 10th. We will send out a reminder to anybody who's on our notification list, which leads me to ask, did everybody here, did your organization receive a notification, or did you find out another way about the grant application being open? Meaning, do you need to be added to our notification list? That's another thing you can let me know. Okay. So Anicia, do you mind sending an email to grants at LAMVCF.org, and we'll make sure to get you on the list. And can you remind me the name of your organization again, please?
Sorry, Free Flight Club.
Free Flight Club. Okay.
So
Okay,
the email is grants@LAMVCF.org.
LAMVCF.org.
Thank you.
Sure. Excellent. But everybody else got some sort of a notification, it sounds like. So you're already in the list. Perfect. Okay. But we will send a reminder just before that, just to remind everybody that October 10th is the deadline. At that point, the applications go to our Community Grants Committee, which is a group of people who are community members who live and volunteer in Los Altos Hills, and Mountain View. Some of them are on our board of directors, and some of them are just community volunteers who raise their hands and said that they're interested in reading grant applications. And the idea behind that is we want to make sure that that the money that gets, the funds that get distributed to the community are decided on by the community. So we have the opportunity to, hear about and read the different applications and learn about what the needs are out there, and then determine how to allocate funds and where to prioritize. The other thing that happens while we're reading these applications is we look at if there's any particular trends that we're seeing, if there's particular needs that are being highlighted that we maybe didn't know about, or organizations that we weren't aware are addressing those needs, as well as understanding which organizations have goals in common, because sometimes we're able to kind of link up different organizations who are maybe kind of pulling in the same direction. For example, last year when we did a focus in the spring on the needs of vulnerable senior citizens, there were several organizations who it turned out maybe could be collaborating and working on some projects together to help kind of amplify the work that they do in the community. The other thing that happens is when we are reading these grant applications, sometimes the requests are larger than what we can fund. And at that point, we do give the opportunity to those donors who have donor advised funds with us to see if they want to take the opportunity to help fund organizations. So either way, it's a great way to get out the word about what you're doing. Any questions about the sort of general process and things like that? because some of the questions that did come in were what are the criteria for how it's determined who gets funded and who does not get funded, which is why I wanted to make sure that you knew that it is community members and that we do read every application, and that as long as it's demonstrated in the application how you serve the needs of citizens in residents rather in Los Altos Hills, and Mountain View, and or Mountain View. Doesn't have to necessarily be all three, but one or more of those areas. Then those applications are put in front of the committee, and then the committee will read them and decide. And we're excited this fall. We have 5 new members of the committee. And we actually have our first meeting this afternoon just to talk about what our goals are overall, and what kinds of questions they already have about the organizations that are represented and serving in the community. So we anticipate that the committee will make their final recommendations by the end of November. At that point, those recommendations go to our board of directors, who makes the final approval. And at that point, we notify everybody who has been approved or declined, and we move forward with disbursement of funds. By the middle of December, we'll also then announce what our focus area will be for the spring. Last year, again, our focus was on the needs of vulnerable senior citizens. And this year, it'll be up to the committee to decide what kinds of trends we see maybe coming out of the fall applications for general operating support. And if we think that there's a particular theme that that maybe would warrant additional focus and additional calls for applications. I will pause. Just want to make sure I don't talk the whole time. Questions, comments? Yes. Nicole.
Sure. I didn't hear you say when the committee would decide on what the spring funding focus would be. Did you say that was in December?
Yeah, so at the same time that we announce what the focus will, who has been approved for grants for the fall, we'll then announce what the spring focus is.
Okay,
so it's
great.
possible,
Thank you.
It's very possible that we will get applications for general operating support in the fall, and we may decide to move as a cohort a group of applications for the spring if we think that there's a group that's focused on a particular subject area that we want to get more information about, and because we've put aside a little more funding for the spring focus, with the idea that somebody might have a really particularly exciting project, initiative, or program that we think warrants additional what's the word? Focus. I guess focus is really the word. So, yeah. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else? I want to make sure I didn't miss a hand. And see, Nicole, that was good. Have you used WebEx before? Did you know how to find your hand, or was it obvious enough?
I have not used WebEx, so I think we just have to consider that me getting lucky or something.
Okay. Well done. Any other questions about sort of the calendar, this sort of the logistics piece of it? I see a thumbs up from somebody. With that thumbs, I was like a floating thumb. That was exciting. I've never seen that before. Maybe Diane's. Excellent. Okay, so let me see. The other question that we had was if you received funding from us in the spring when we did our focus on vulnerable seniors, you can still apply for the fall. And the answer to that is yes. Again, we don't know how many applications are going to come in. We don't know what the focus is going to be for the spring, and you know what kinds of organizations the committee will prioritize. But you're definitely welcome to apply. If you haven't applied in a while, you may see that we've very much streamlined the application. We have many fewer questions. I'm hoping that I get a thumbs up from everybody about that one. That really is just an opportunity for you to, in a couple of sentences, or even reusing a grant application you've used somewhere else, that's absolutely fine. If you want to upload that, if you want to upload pictures of things you've already done, reports you've run for other organizations, because we know other organizations might be funding you, and you might have required reports and things like that that you're filling out. Really, our goal is to make it as straightforward as possible for you, because we want you focusing on actually delivering what you want to deliver, not filling out paperwork either before or after. And really, the reason we do the Q&A like this, why we do, you know, kind of grantee check-ins throughout the year, is I'd much rather hear a story that illustrates your impact than put you through the ringer to, you know, to check a few boxes here and there. So, you know, love to hear if just, you know, what is it that's bringing you joy, and where are the challenges, where are the roadblocks, where are the opportunities for, you know, finding alignment with other organizations as well. So, any other questions? Let's see. Vicky is here and did not get a chance to introduce herself. If you
Yes,
would like
hi.
to.
I was driving at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm Vicky Moore, and I'm the founder and now board chair of Living Classroom. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, and thank you for not logging in while you drove.
Right.
Did anybody else? I saw a couple of folks who dialed in, called in, popped in, who wanted to introduce themselves. Just the opportunity. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Well, I have some questions.
Not
If
just,
nobody else has any other questions, go ahead.
there's a question in chat. What is the average size of grants for general ops?
For general operating. So we did not put a cap on the size. In the past, our grants have generally ranged from around $1,000 to around $5,000, and sometimes up to 10. It's fairly unusual for them to go beyond $10,000. So it's I would say it's more likely in the range of it's very hard to say. It's very hard to say, but I would say more in the kind of like 3,000 to 5,000 range in general. But again, we don't know how many applications we'll get. We don't know if there'll be an organization or two that the committee is particularly taken with and wants to fund them at a higher level. But again, we did our goal with scaling down the application and trying to make it more straightforward was really to kind of be a little bit more calibrated, aligned with the amount of funds that were more likely going to be coming. We don't want you, again, spending hours and days on weeks on a grant application if the funding is going to be relatively modest. So did that answer the question of whoever the chat was in the chat? I can't see the chat. Okay. Any other questions?
Another question from chat.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Question was, do we need to request either fall or spring funding in our application, or is it decided by the committee?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Do we need to request either fall or spring funding in our application, or is it decided by the committee?
So the application that's open right now is just for the fall. And that's for general operating support, whereas the spring application will be for a particular focus area. So we would ask more questions about a particular program or project for the spring. Unless, yeah, I mean, in general. So yeah, so fall is just general operating support. So you don't have to specify that there's a particular program that it's going to go for. You would just really need to describe the goals of your organization overall, because we know everybody needs to, you know, keep the lights on and run their websites, and some of you are paying staff and you know, things like that. So that's why it's for general operating support. It's at your discretion as to what you spend the funds on. Whereas again, in the spring, if we have a particular question around a particular subject area, then we'll ask more details about how the funding would help accomplish that particular objective. That helps. And I see Sarah Fisher, you had a question.
Yeah, I do. We received a grant from you in March of 2020, and it was not for operating expenses. It was specifically to purchase music. And I was wondering, we were going to write for operating expenses this time around, because we'd like to use that money to, you know, to buy music, since we've been using our library. Is that okay to do it that way, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can specify that one of your operating expenses is you know, needing to purchase music. That's right. If that's part of your annual budget.
Yes.
Yeah, if that's part of your annual budget, then you can just you know, kind of describe how.
Right.
Yeah, and then it's at your discretion. Basically, what it is that, let's say you write a grant, you ask for $5,000 for music, and then you end up only spending $3,000 of it on music, and the other $2,000 for your conductor. The idea behind general operating support is that you don't need to account to us that you spent $3,000 on this and $2,000 on that. Because we gave you general operating support, and it's a, you know, a trust-based thing that if you say you need $5,000 and we give you $5,000, you're going to spend it on, for, you know, the charitable purposes of your organization.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And Anne.
Yeah, is there going to be any change or anything different as far as report requirements for the grant this year, the fall grants?
Yeah, so in general, we're not really asking for formal reporting anymore. If you get a grant, we will sort of check back in with you and see how it's going. If you have any questions, if you're hitting any roadblocks, invite you to send us more things like send us a press release, send us a social media piece that you sent out, send us a copy of your annual report with some pictures. You know, send us a quote about you know, what your organization is doing, because to us that is much more impactful. Again, with the general size of the grants that we send, we're not necessarily moving the needle to such an extent that we know that you're not operating unless we give you a grant. We understand that, and so we don't want to over-represent what our support means, but we want to hear what our community partners are doing. We want to help celebrate what you're doing, want to amplify what you're doing. If you send us, you know, like a Facebook post or something like that you did, we can repost it, you know, or if you're needing a new, you know, conductor or volunteers for a particular project that's happening, you know, we can post that on our LinkedIn as well. Same thing. It just helps kind of amplify what's going on in the community. So, you know, for us, that's much more meaningful. Or just, you know, send an email. Just wanted you to know we just had this great event last weekend and 10,000 people showed up, and, you know, it was great, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Or again, if you've written a report for somebody else who's required it and you just want to forward that along just for our information about what you're doing. Again, this is for general operating support. And so you can give us a general idea of what, you know, of what you're doing. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. And if anything that you're asking here, you're not seeing as clearly articulated in the application or in the grant agreement, please let me know, because we've tried wherever we can to kind of be clear that we're not requiring a report, that is, that this is for, the organization gets to decide how to spend the funds as long as it's for a charitable purpose. Yeah, please let us know, because we're continually refining the process to try to make it smoother.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah Fisher, your hand's up, but I think it's just still up. I don't think it's, if you're down, I'll lower your hand. Okay, I lowered your hand. You're good. Okay. And Jennifer Minier, I don't think we had a chance to hear which organization you represent.
With a nonprofit called My Digital Tattoo, we are doing work through El Camino Healthcare Funding with Mountain View Wisman School District, where we're providing workshops for the students and parent education services.
Oh,
it's in the mental health space.
Mental health space.
Yeah, the core of our mission is to facilitate dialogue amongst communities about basically how kids are using the internet, which is a really nebulous problem space, but that's the basis.
Interesting. And you operate within the Mountain View Wisman School District. Is that what you said?
That is a service area for us this year. We've had a relationship with them in the past, but we have about 28 school partner relationships in San Mateo and Santa Clara County.
Oh, great. Okay. Great. Did you have any, as an organization new to our ecosystem, did you have any specific questions that you came here to have answered today? I wasn't sure. I'm sorry, I missed exactly when you came in, so I wasn't sure if you had a question that has been answered, or if you had a question that has not yet been answered. The floor is yours, because we're here to answer people's questions.
I appreciate that. It's really clear that this community is tight-knit and that there are a lot of previous grantees on this call, which is awesome to hear. You have done a good job reiterating what was my primary opaque area for understanding, which was, like I said, we're carrying out a specific project, but we are hoping to expand our trainings to include mental health providers, specifically at CHAC. They've reached out to us for training. Their budget doesn't really allow our training program, so we're looking for funding to support mental health training for healthcare providers who work with teens.
Yeah.
And that's a specific project, but I'm hearing you say over and over again that general operating is covered by these funds. So maybe we don't have to be so specific about telling that story. But I guess my question is, we have specific projects that are located in the area, amongst many projects in the Bay Area. Sounds like for the funding committee, the best thing is just to tell the story as holistically as possible while highlighting locality if possible. And then the general operating funds don't necessarily go to a specific project, and we can use them however we want if we want to put them towards a specific project. So
exactly.
I think you've done the questions that came before me perfectly filled in any holes that I had.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think especially in this case, CHAC is a well-known entity for us, longtime legacy grantee, and so explaining that you have a particular project with them that is all around, really sounds like building the pipeline for, in this case, a really specific competency that's required for you to deliver your programs to local school children. I think, kind of just articulating that, sort of how many students are potentially impacted by that, parents, students, teachers, and healthcare providers. I think that would be, that would probably help strengthen your application. And we may have some follow-up questions, just as an organization that's new to us. Your contact, who you're working with at CHAC, that kind of thing would be just, super helpful. So
definitely, I appreciate all that context.
Yeah.
And that's definitely helpful. And I see someone else has a hand, so I'll mute myself.
Okay, thanks. Nice to meet you. And Sarah.
Hi. So it will be Maru asking the question.
Hi.
I think this is back to that same clarification of the operating support but we have a specific project in mind. So, and as you know, momentum is large in the county, so we are only focusing on the programs that we have in our North County. So, yeah, so I was just wondering about that because the application does say who will benefit and how will you use the funds. So we can still describe somewhat of the project that we're proposing. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
especially, I mean, we left that question in particularly for organizations like yours that maybe operate a little more regionally, just to give you the opportunity to specify how many local residents, organizations, et cetera, will benefit because of your program.
Got it.
Yeah. Versus like the project that we funded in the spring for vulnerable seniors, that was a really, really specific, you know, time limited need. Hopefully it all worked out well. You know, that was very well articulated as to the need and the time and place. Whereas this would be more, here's how many people we serve in your area. You know, here's the scope of services in your area, and then the committee would just weigh whether or not, you know, that was an area of focus for us for the fall, or again, if not an area of focus, if that was going to be that application would be a priority for the fall, or if we maybe decide as a cohort that we're going to, for example, focus on mental health for the spring, then it may be that we, you know, kind of move some of those, move as a cohort, a group of applications forward.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So our yeses and nos this fall may have nuances. It may be, you know, yes, we're funding you, or we're not funding you now, but we're moving you forward, or we're not funding you. Here's what would, you know, help you have a stronger application in the future, or we just had too many requests and we just couldn't fund everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? And Hank, has anything else come through the chat?
Not lately.
Okay. And I know I'll just throw another question that I had also gotten earlier in the week that hopefully everybody who's on who falls in this category knows the answer, but we do fiscally sponsor a number of projects in the community, and that means basically that we are their 501c3 umbrella. It doesn't necessarily mean that we fund them. It's a confusing term because fiscal sponsorship, sometimes people think that means we give them all of their operating budget, but we don't. But yes, fiscally sponsored projects are eligible to apply, whether you're one of our fiscally sponsored projects or you're somebody else's fiscally sponsored project. So if you have any additional questions about that, so like on this call, Community Women's Chorus is one of our fiscally sponsored projects, for example. All right. Anybody else need to have a question to ask? Oh, Rona.
Thank you. Just so on that note, do you support one-time events, sponsor events?
In general, we prefer not to.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kinds of things where we would just, we wouldn't necessarily run that through the Community Grants Committee. Mm-hmm. We will, as a foundation, sometimes sponsor events. For example, the City of Los Altos has an upcoming movie night, and we're an event sponsor, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So for events like that, it's probably best, you could still send me an email about it, and we could see if we have a small discretionary budget for that staff can allocate for particular things. But in general, the Community Grants Committee prefers to look at organizations as a whole, and kind of what they're doing and impact wise.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have a particular event that's coming up that you were thinking about, or you're just curious?
Well, we have our yearly Asset Champions. Well, I guess we could still call it breakfast. The time of day may change, but in our Asset Champions event, I mean,
Okay.
we've been doing it for like 23 years, and it's usually in the spring.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. In general, that wouldn't be one that I would recommend submitting to the grants committee. I think you'd be much better off sort of emphasizing, your program impact and things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. Anybody else? Does anybody have questions for other panelists? Oh, Jennifer, go ahead.
I figure because I'm new, maybe everybody understands the scope here, but my board chair, for context, sent me this application and some context, which I thought was helpful. I was curious if you could share, or if there is published somewhere, the number of applications that are received every year and kind of what the trend has been. We're always really curious to understand funding orgs, like if their giving has expanded or contracted over the years, and like what precipitates that. So I was wondering, everybody may know this too, so you can just point me to a website where the information is. But
Yeah, that's fine. And for us, so we have the good fortune to have be funded by the Packard Foundation and by Heising Simons. So those two foundations give us our discretionary grant budget for each year. So in general, we have usually about $200,000 a year overall to disperse. We do sometimes put out requests to the community to help augment those funds. As I mentioned before, we can also give the opportunity to our donor advised funds to augment those grants as well. In 2020 and 2021, we did raise a couple extra $1 million of funds that we immediately just dispersed out to the community. Those were much more for pandemic relief kind of things, and those were much larger grants overall. Those were, much more extraordinary times, and we didn't even run grant applications during that time. We just basically picked up the phone to our community partners and said, I'm sure, what would you do if we cut you a $10,000 check right now? We know it would just go immediately right out the door, right? The Day Worker Center and CSA and CHAC and, the organizations that we knew. And then later on into the pandemic, we had the opportunity to meet some new organizations that we hadn't necessarily worked with before. But so to answer your question, I don't really know what to say in terms of cadence, because I would say that the last couple of years really upset any potential apple cart. But what it did is made us step back and look at what our grant process had traditionally been. And we looked to see where can we lessen the burden on the organizations, where can we encourage new organizations to apply so that we can more fully understand what are the unmet needs out there in the community, and what don't we know about already, and who don't we know about already, and what are they doing, and how does it all kind of fit together? Because we try as much as possible to be much more of a kind of a convener. How do we bring organizations together? I'm thinking I'll have like more specific icebreakers next time if we have time. Then you all have the opportunity to get to know each other as well. I know when the first time we did a Q&A session was in the spring, and that's where I met Jennifer. Jennifer's still on the call, and I think a couple other of you were there as well. And it was just nice because we hadn't really done this kind of thing before. We invited past grantees, current grantees, potentially future grantees together, to meet each other and hear about what they're working on. So, and for what the future holds, I don't know. We're always looking for new opportunities, and we'd love to be dispersing even more funds and to more organizations, and filling more buckets where we can. So, but I'm happy if you want to send me an email. I'm happy to sit down and chat with you if you want to just want to hear more about what we do overall. I'd be happy to talk with you about that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else? Any questions for each other? Want to hear more about what's on the folks? Rose, I'd love to know what's happening with the Assistance League these days.
Let me unmute myself and
Yeah.
get out of the sun, the lovely sun. Hi, just for those of you that came in late, I'm Rose Rambo. I'm president of the Assistance League of Los Altos. We are based in downtown Los Altos, but we cover Los Altos Hills, Los Altos, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, some Palo Alto, and some East Palo Alto in terms of our programs. Our primary focus is on education and targeting K through 12. And we have partners and also Title I schools, or what used to be called Title I schools, those with students that have unsatisfied needs. So our programs each year are modified depending on the needs of the school. We are seeing a lot of mental health related requests from the teachers and the principals at this point in time. No surprise. In terms of getting the students to come back in a positive manner. Social services are having a lot of requests for simple things like clothing, because the students are so upset. They come in, they have unfortunate accidents, and then they feel embarrassed to go back to the classroom. And so it's very, very basic needs, but it's one that we're hoping to help the kids so that they can come back. And then secondly, we're trying to get them back up to grade level in terms of reading and academic. So that's what our focus is. And each school, we've got 10 or 12 different schools that we deal with. And each school, our program is slightly different depending on the needs of the teachers and the principals. So that's us in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Cool. My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Rona. Oh, unmute yourself, please.
Hi, I would love to, if you don't mind, take an opportunity to let everyone here know that, as you heard me mention, we have our Asset Champions celebration in coming up in the spring, and we just opened up our call for nominations. If you're not familiar with our Asset Champions event, it's I think we're going on our 23rd year, and it's a big event. Sans COVID years, we did them online, but they've generally been an in-person event where we have anywhere from like 500 to 1,000 people that show up all across Silicon Valley. And we award schools, people, and organizations that are supporting Silicon Valley youth in making this a healthy, caring, and supportive place for young people to grow up and live. I've been hearing different information from people on this call, and I think your organizations would probably oh, you're so sweet. Look at you. Yeah, that's the 2020 event. Oh, I'm happy to put a link in the chat here to the nomination website. But again, we recognize elementary, middle, and high schools. In fact, last year, Mountain View High School was our Caring High School winner. So that was really exciting to do. And what you're looking at is our 2020 event. We had to move that online because of COVID. But again, I was hearing people chat here today, and it sounds like several of your organizations would qualify to be nominated. It's a very prestigious award. I mean, we've had people like Steve Young and Ruby Bridges speak at this event in the past. We don't yet have our keynote speaker, but as soon as I do, I'm happy to share it with this group. But we are looking to go back to an in-person event next spring. So I will copy the link to the nomination form. Please get your nominations in. We'll be I will let you in on a secret. The website says that they officially close on October 31st, and a little wink, wink, it'll probably be extended out for another week or two after that, but please try to get your nominations in as close to October 31st as you can. And I won't be able to vote. I'm sorry, I don't have a say in the vote, but I will be part of that nomination committee and getting them all of the forms and nominees. So I would hope to hear and see a nomination from several of you there, and everyone, including nominees and winners, get recognized at the event. So thank you for giving me the platform to talk about this. But really, it's really an opportunity for, well, everyone here is doing amazing work, and if you're doing work especially to support youth, then you should be nominating your organization or somebody within your organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Rona. Anyone else have any other announcements? Otherwise, I'll close us out. Announcements, questions, thoughts, ideas, suggestions. I'm open. All right. Well, Hank, thank you for bringing up Hank's always good with the sliding in with the screen share right when we need it, so we know what we're talking about. It's great. Anything else? I don't see any hands up. You can take yourselves off of mute if you have anything else. Otherwise, let's see. Our contact information's on our website. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to send them our way, and we will get back to you. And hopefully, I'll be seeing applications from you or letting us know, hey, we're going to pass this fall, and hope to see you in the future. So. Thank you so much for being here today and for taking the time. I'm going to make sure that we get everybody out of here on time. Thank you for listening to me talk and getting us through the beginning of our first WebEx webinar. We did it, Hank. And now you can say you use WebEx, so good enough. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for everyone for being here today, and hopefully we'll
all.
See you around the community.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. You can stop recording.